So today's video is on some of the Financial Times articles on gold over the years. And the first one we're going to look at is this one from 2004. And it has the title, Going Gold. And essentially, in a nutshell, this article is explaining why gold is pointless, it is foolish, and it's basically not worth it. And you can find this article, it's still on Reddit. This screenshot is taken from Reddit, so if you just search Going Gold, Reddit, it'll come up. And when you read it, there's a lot of interesting language used. So I've got some points on the right here. And it talks about how, in a low inflation environment, that gold is pointless and that there's basically no reason to own it, right? And this was way back in 2004. And I think the gold price, as it says on the screenshot, around $400 an ounce. And it says that gold's risky, it doesn't grow, and that especially for private investors, it's pointless. And this is against the backdrop of gold within the last year hitting $5,500 an ounce. And this language from the Financial Times is so interesting. And given that this is the mainstream media, this is the narrative that they're pushing. Okay, so as I can show you here on the right, it talks about things, the pointlessness of gold. There's no reason to hold it. It's pointless as an investment asset. But what is interesting is in the article itself, even though it's slating gold, it says that, governments cannot inflate it away. And that is still true to this day. The governments cannot inflate away an ounce of gold. And yet they're talking about it being pointless and having no worth. And again, it just smacks of a misunderstanding here from the mainstream media. They don't understand, or maybe they don't want people to understand the reasons why gold is important and why you should own it. I've spoken in other videos about Alan Greenspan, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, about his original essay on gold. Gold is real money, okay? They cannot inflate it away. And yes, okay, it might not give you a return, it might not give you a dividend, for example, but it doesn't matter. And my point with gold is that technically it has infinite upside against the fiat currency. Technically, the value of gold is infinity against paper money, because paper is just paper, whereas gold always has value and it always will have value. So reading this article from 2004, it probably prompted a lot of people to sell gold and to realize, actually, I don't want to hold gold. But this was the mainstream media, so a lot of people probably followed this advice, probably began to shift away from gold and see it as pointless, as the article suggests, that it's a foolish affair for a private individual to hold physical bullion. But, the virtues are endless. It's if you have physical bullion, no one can track it, trace it, you can't tax it easily. Whereas if you have money in the banking system, it's available, they can find it, they can see what you're doing with it. And this also rings true for a recent article on gold that's come out from the FT, where they've talked about it's been gold's worst quarter in more than a decade. And they're basically insinuating the same sort of thing, that it's pointless, why would you want it? There's been a bigger focus on AI, so people are shifting into those stocks, such as, the SpaceX stuff, Anthropic and OpenAI. And they're saying there's been outflows from ETFs and, this thing, that the debasement trade, which is basically people who are hedging against fiat currency, that people are now less interested in this. And of course, all of this feeds into the fact that there's been a sell-off in gold. But this sort of, it doesn't directly mirror the 2004 article, but it's sort of along the same theme, where they're trying to basically suggest that actually it's pointless, that we don't need gold. Why would you hold gold? But the truth is, central banks around the world are still buying gold. It's still important. All central banks still have gold because they know that it is real money. And it's the same principles here now that prove that gold is very important. Okay, you can't inflate it away. It is real, it is sound money, okay? And despite what the mainstream media may tell you, what they may put out there, and especially, a reputable source like the Financial Times, they're still saying essentially that there's no reason to hold gold, it's pointless. But if you'd followed that advice back in 2004 and sold your gold, you would have missed out on thousands thousands of pounds, admittedly fiat pounds or dollars, in growth or in investment return. But my point here is to think very carefully about what the mainstream media are trying to tell you and what the reality is. We know gold is real money. We know it's sound money. We know you can't inflate it away, and it will always have relevance. It will always have importance in society and the wider economy. So the takeaway here, don't focus too much on the mainstream media. Gold is sound money. It is real money, no matter what they or anyone says.